Hi, this is Noel Manning, and I'm hanging out with Mr. Gary Wheeler, a good friend from just a few years ago, and we've developed a great friendship. Gary is a producer, he's a director, he's a writer, he's a filmmaker extraordinaire. Currently, he is also the vice president of original movies for INSP, and he's a producer for the new film called called War Room, not The War Room, but film called War Room, that will be hitting theaters end of August. Is that August 27th, 28th time period, Gary?
That's right. I think the official Friday is August 28th, but I think there's going to be Wednesday night screenings, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it's a legit summer movie.
Absolutely.
And so end of summer movie.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah, and this movie is directed and written by the Kendrick brothers, who have a string of films that people may be familiar with, including films like Fireproof, Courageous as well. I think Facing the Giants is another one of those. And Gary, we thought we'd give you a chance to give a little background on who you are. Listeners to this show have heard about you before. We've talked a few times. But it's always good for new listeners to kind of get a little background on who Gary Wheeler is before we dive into the bulk of the new material we're going to cover with War Room and how that happened. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about your love of film and how that all happened for you.
Well, as I've shared many times, Noel, on your show and before, I grew up a filmmaker. I made my first movie when I was 16. I'm in my mid-40s now, and it was a horrible film that I made as a high school student,
right.
Yeah. And I've just grown up with a love of cinema and a love of movies, and I'm blessed to be actively doing it. War Room marked my, 13th, 14th, 15th feature, something along those lines, or major production, so to speak,
Right.
And just very blessed to be making movies, and actually up until this point, largely making movies in my home state of North Carolina, where I was raised. And so on movies, I've served as an executive producer for a few films, as a writer, director, producer for several films, as a director for several films, and then on War Room, I was the co-producer of the film, along with Stephen Kendrick was the producer, and Alex Kendrick was the director, and then Stephen and Alex, as you said before, they were the writers of the film as well. And it is their fifth movie, I believe, if you go all the way back to Flywheel, that Alex was in. Flywheel, Facing the Giants, Fireproof, Courageous, War Room.
Yeah,
and so I've had a jack of all trades, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and you've worked with some amazing talents over the years as well, and it's always fun to watch a Gary Wheeler production, whether it's something you've directed or written or produced or co-produced, because you see some great talent and faces known and faces unknown to many as well. One of the things that I've really enjoyed, and when you and I first connected, it was for a movie called The List.
That's right.
Which was a Robert Whitlow written piece, and you've done several films with Whitlow. So I always want to give you a chance to talk about that collaboration and working with just a great guy and a great writer as well.
Yes, we've done 4 movies together. The List was the first, which I co-wrote the adaptation, directed and produced, and then The Trial with Matthew Modine, and which was really cool. And I again did the same thing: co-wrote, direct, produced, and then Jimmy, which I've talked about on your show before,
right.
which I co-wrote, produced, and then we finished Mountaintop. And so Mountaintop is the next one. It's probably one of my favorite books that he's ever written. It contains one of my favorite characters, a gentleman named Sam Miller, who's played by the incomparable Barry Corbin from Northern Exposure and Lonesome Dove, and just a great, one of the last kind of cowboys, cowboy actors. And Barry's in it, and just a great cast in general. And so that will be coming out either late this year or early next year, and we're still making all the final decisions as to where it is. And it's a really nice story,
Yeah.
and it's a beautifully shot film. I think it's, of all the movies I've done, it really took advantage of the location being the mountains, and it just really looks really beautiful.
Yeah,
film. You've seen it, so
yes, yeah,
you know.
yeah, and we'll talk more about it. Also, we'll bring you back on once that's
Right.
available on DVD. But the mountains and the atmosphere becomes almost a supporting character in a way as well.
That's right.
And I'm looking forward to talking to you more about that when that movie is out for others to check out as well. Well, let's talk about War Room and your connection to this and how you got involved with working with the Kendrick brothers, who have had such success with these theatrical films that really touch on so many different levels of the Christian walk. And so let's talk about how you got involved and then talk about the movie itself.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, my story kind of goes back to February in 2014, and so last February, I was at a conference, and 2014 was a great year for Christian cinema. You know, it was God's Not Dead, Heaven is for Real. I'm trying to think. There was at least one or two other movies.
Yeah, and you also had the
out.
Bible
The Bible
series.
did really well on TV.
Son of God,
did really well in theaters. And so it was just a great spring of one after another movie was coming out. Mom's Night Out, which was done by friends of mine, John and Andy Irwin, which I loved, with Patricia Heaton. And it was just a great time for Christian films at the theater. And so so what happened was I found myself at a conference and going to these screenings, just one right after the other at night, and private screenings. And I said, God, I really would love to make a movie that gets a chance to play at theaters. And as oftentimes, not only play at theaters, but go kind of wide and impact culture, because that's my calling, really, is to help impact culture, you know. And so I just really wanted to take part, even if it's a small way, in doing that. And as a human, you start thinking in your own strength, well, how can I make that happen? You know, who do I know, and this and that and the other. And about a week or two later, it was one of the fastest answer to prayers I've ever had, Noel. About a week or two later, I get a call from Alex Kendrick, who I've known for years, and we've always been friends, but not collaborators. And so I get a phone call from Alex, and he says, "Gary, I'm in your backyard." And I say, "What?" And he said, "We're gonna make our next movie in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where I live.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
you know, can I talk to you about making movies in North Carolina?" And we sat down and talked, and I shared with them kind of my prayer. And so at the end of the day, after about 2 weeks, I found myself in Albany, Georgia, meeting with Alex and Steven and being the co-producer on the movie. And so they, for the first time, they shot outside of the state of Georgia, and they came to Charlotte. And I am a local filmmaker in Charlotte, North Carolina, who happens to know them from years ago. And so, it was very much divine orchestration, and I was just proud to be involved with it. And I respected them tremendously. I respected their heart, their understanding of their audience, their understanding of how they want to reach their audience and how they want to speak to their audience and the way they want to bless their audience. And I just really, really respected them tremendously and learned a lot working with them, and enjoyed every minute of it. It was a great summer. So summer of 2014, we made the movie War Room together in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it was just a great experience. We had 80-something churches come and support it in the local region, donated food to us, drove buses, you know. We had prayer volunteers. We had child care for crew members. We had, prayer support every day. It was just it was great. It was a great outpouring on the city, from the city.
So it really was. It was a prayerful partnership that in many ways, made this movie happen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the call. That's Alex and Steven's call, really, and they believed, and they spent years writing the script and praying through the story that that prayer is important, and that a prayer strategy. Many times we have a strategy for our finances, a strategy for our marriage, a strategy as a parent, but we don't have a strategy as to pray through these things. And they really felt like where we are as a country and where we are as humans, that this was an important message. And so it was only fitting that prayer came in the process.
Yeah. So the creation of this, and as the movie was happening, it was kind of mirroring the positive aspects of the things that come through within the story of the movie that you see on screen.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely, and every day, one of the things I admire so much about Alex and Steve, every day they had a devotion at call time. So meaning if we were going to start shooting, if all the crew was supposed to be there ready to go at 6 a.m. At
right.
6 a.m. we had a devotion in the
wow.
prayer time.
Wow.
And that's how they started every day. And we had local pastors come in and do it. We had great Christian leaders. Priscilla Shire, who plays one of the leads, is a great speaker. And her father's Tony Evans. He came and did a devotion. Her friend Beth Moore came and did a devotion and has a role in the movie as well. And so it was just great. Alex and Stephen did multiple devotions. It was a really great summer of working together, and a group of people, close to 100 crew members, and hundreds of extras and volunteers, and just came together and really loved on each other, and had a common goal to make this movie.
We're on the phone with Gary Wheeler. Gary is a producer, he's a director, he's a writer for multiple films. He's also the vice president of original movies for ISPN. And we're talking about War Room, which will be hitting theaters on August the 28th. You can also see some advanced screenings just prior to that, but that's the official release date, 27th, 28th time period. War Room by the Kendrick brothers, writers and directors who've done quite a few films, and co-produced by Gary, and we're just fortunate to have him to talk a little bit about this. Gary, tell us, what is the story? Give us kind of a snapshot of this story of War Room.
Absolutely. As I said, the heart of the movie is to help develop a prayer strategy, and so the setting of the movie is there's a couple, the Jordans, played by T.C. Stallings, who was in Courageous, and then Priscilla Shire, who I just mentioned, and they have their daughter Danielle. So Tony and Elizabeth Jordan and their daughter Danielle. They're a quote good family that goes to church, but they're not connecting on all cylinders. The marriage is not connecting, and their lives are not connecting, and simultaneously, Elizabeth has a job as a realtor, and she meets Miss Clara. And Miss Clara is one of those older women who we've all run into in church, who just have wisdom beyond measure, really. And so, as she's exploring the house, that she's going to try and help sell, that Elizabeth's going to try and help sell for Miss Clara, she says, "I'd like to show you my favorite room in the house," and it's her war room. It's a place of prayer strategy. And so the movie really is an older woman mentoring a younger woman in how to pray for everything in her life, and the impact that has on her family and everybody that surrounds her. And so it's a movie about family and being very strategic in how we pray for our family.
Wow. Okay. All right. It's I love how the Kendrick brothers have been able to find these stories that can connect on so many different levels. I mean, Courageous in many ways. I saw that with my son, and it was just one of those incredible father-son pieces for me, a parent-child piece that connected. And Fireproof was a relationship kind of piece as well. And I love the fact that that's able to happen, and I think that's something that's resonated with others who have seen the films that the Kendrick brothers have put out as well.
Yeah, and I think anybody who's seen any of their movies will not be disappointed in War Room. There are certain things we set out to do that they would tell you that they are building on every movie,
Right.
and so they want to continue to get better and continue to make movies that reach this audience that they want to reach. And so I think War Room is a very, very strong film in their library. And I think the ironic thing or funny thing or whatever you want to say about God's timing is right now where we are in the world. You hear stories around the world of countries in trouble and things going on in America and people not getting along. Just turn on the news for 5 minutes
Yes.
any day, and you'll be
yeah.
like, wow, what am I living in, And prayer is the answer to all of those things.
Right.
And so prayer is the one thing we can do as individuals, to impact the world. And so I just don't, I think that this is a movie for such a time as this. And I think audiences will leave that theater inspired to go and pray for their family, pray for their country, pray for their president, pray for their surroundings, and pray for their church, pray for their pastor,
Right.
pray for everybody in their lives. And I just think it'll be really inspiring. People will leave the movie theater inspired.
You and I both are fans of film too.
Yes.
You work in it, but you and I both love to watch movies, and we'll go watch movies, like the Avengers. We'll watch these big blockbuster films that you typically hear as your popcorn flicks for the summer. But I think it's as important, even more important, for films that are message films to be seen by audiences. And so many times they get kind of left out and missed by people because they're like, well, it's not the eye candy. Well, there's a place for that. Believe me, I love it. I love to go see, Arnold Schwarzenegger, come back 3,000 or 4,000 times and destroy, the people who are trying to destroy the world in the future. I love that stuff.
Right.
I love that escape. But there is definite room, a definite need for films that are message films and films, especially for the Christian message, for the Christian audience, and for the world at large to understand how powerful prayer can be. So this is one of those that fits that need that's out there that I think many times is overlooked by general audiences. And it's been great to see in the past few years how some of these message films are really starting to connect with people that normally maybe didn't connect with in the past. And do you think there's a reason that we're seeing that happen?
I think life gets more complicated, and we have so many devices and so many screens in our lives and so many things that are distractions. And I think these movies have very simple's not the right word, but I think what I mean by that. It's they have messages that cut to the heart.
Right.
That are heartwarming.
Yeah, they're universal
so
messages.
That's really what the audience wants to see and wants to hear. And so I think that is resonating. And there are organizations like Movie Guide that will tell you, that will break down, Ted Baer and Movie Guide will break down all of the statistics for you, that PG and PG-13 and G-rated movies do way better than R-rated movies, and historically they do. And so I just think, I think that there's a reason for that. And I think that there is an audience out there. I don't think it's any secret that a movie like Inside Out
Right.
doing fantastic
yes.
at the box office.
Yeah.
Because it's a good story,
Good
but it's
story.
something that families can come see together.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think War Room and the movies that Alex and Steven have done up till now, they just hit a market that really is longing for this kind of story.
Excellent. Well, Gary, really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us talking about the War Room. War Room, not the War Room. So if you Google it, make sure you just type in War Room. Gary Wheeler is the co-producer of the film that will be hitting theaters at the end of August. Alex and Stephen Kendrick are the writers, and Alex Kendrick directed. I'm sure that Alex and Stephen both had some co-directing duties in this. Can you give us any insight on that?
Well, it's interesting. I think they have they actually have clear relationship. They have clear skills. Stephen has a very pastoral heart, and so as a producer, he really wants to love on the crew and the cast, and make sure that their filmmaking experience is successful and a blessing. And Alex is very much focused on the what's in front of the camera,
Gotcha.
And performance.
Right.
And so they really do focus on, Alex really does focus on being the director, and Stephen really focuses on being the producer. And then, then once the movies are done, they have a long ministry cycle, and that they're both ministers at heart. And so they each play their role. And, it's funny, I think the Bible says how good and pleasant it is when brothers and believers work together in unity. And they are clearly two men who work together in unity, and they're moving in the same direction with each of their gifts working. So it's a joy to behold. Yeah.
Well, I tell you, this will be also a great opportunity when films like this come out in theaters. It's great to see churches come together as groups and focus on the issues that the films will bring out. And so I'm really hoping that we're going to see that power of prayer become kind of that driving force that gets people talking about the importance of that again, and maybe not just inside the church, but outside of it as well.
Oh, I think so. I think it's I think I just went to one of the premieres of the film, and I was just amazed when the audience, when it ends, there was spontaneous standing and a standing ovation and raising of hands, and it was just spontaneous. 1,000 people in this screening.
Wow!
And the amazing thing was, it wasn't just for the movie. I mean, the movie's great, and I'm proud to be a part of it. But it was for the message. It was for the call at the end of the movie, which is a call to pray. And I just think how wonderful that is. So I think. I think it's great. I can't imagine the number of people who are going to see this summer and beyond, and 67 countries that it's going to go to, or however many countries it's going to go to, and just how well it's going to be received, and what audiences are going to think. I think it's going to be great.
Excellent. Well, Gary Wheeler, appreciate you spending time talking to us again. We always love having you back on Cinemascene right here on Gardner Webb University Radio, WGWG.org. I think next time we'll either talk about Mountaintop, or we'll talk about a Christmas film you got going on. So we'll see. Any final thoughts, final words, final comments, things you want to make sure that you get a chance to share with our audience before we wrap up?
I just say, War Room is opening weekend is very important, in the industry, and I just think if people can make their way out to see War Room on opening weekend, or get their church groups out, or your people who don't normally go to the movies, they're going to really enjoy this film. And so I think if they can go out, I think it's warroomthemovie.com. They can buy advance tickets, all that good sort of stuff.
Awesome. Gary, as always, we appreciate it. And hang on the line. I'll talk to you. We'll wrap things up in just a minute. Appreciate our listeners for tuning in, as always. And Gary, do you have a Twitter feed, or if somebody wants to know more information about Gary, what's the best way they can do that?
Absolutely. I'm still getting into the whole Twitter thing, but I do, and it's you can find me at Level Path Prod. So that's my name, my company is Level Path Productions, and so Level Path Prod, PROD at the end. So I'm on there.
Okay, and you can also go to INSP probably and find out more information about Gary there as well.
Absolutely.
Good deal. Thanks for listening to us here on Cinemascene on WGWG.org. Till next time, that's a wrap.